Welcome to the Astrology of Healing. This is a presentation on the moon, and I'm Willa Kaiser, Vedic astrologer. First, I'm going to start by chanting a mantra to my spiritual lineage. Om Ahum Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Om. Om Ahum Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Om. Om Ahum Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Om. So we're going to talk about the moon as viewed by Vedic astrology. The name of the moon in Sanskrit is Chandra, which is made up of the syllable ch, and then Indra, which is the name of the god who is considered to be the king of karma and is concerned with the 10 indriyas, which we'll talk about in just a moment. The mind has these 10 indriyas, which are related to the senses. And so Indra has to do with what is going to help us with our karma yoga, with the work that we're going to do out in the world. It's also related to the deity Krishna, who we're going to be talking about in this presentation. Like the moon, our karmas will cause us to wax and wane. They're ever-changing. The moon is one of the luminaries. It represents receptivity. It's also one of the sattva planets, as we talked about in the first presentation on the sun. The moon is known as a Brahmin, or a priest, who is full of nectar. He delights the world with his cool rays, and the gods relish him for his nectar. He is called an ocean of ambrosia. So you can hear all of the water and nectar-like qualities of the moon. This is the god Indra, who is the ruler of the 10 indriyas. So the indriyas are connected with the 5 senses. And the 5 senses are the way that we perceive and interact with the world. There are 2 groups of indriyas. One is the sensory faculty, the Jnan Indriya, which is about our taking in information, which relates to the 5 senses. But then there is our response, which has to do with movements and our motor faculties, which are the Karmendriyas, related to the word karma, which means work. So basically, we receive all of these impressions through our senses, and then we react or respond to those. And so this deity, Indra, is connected with the Indriyas, and this is what the moon is dealing with. Our consciousness or our mind is constantly dealing with these different sensory stimulations, which lead to desires, and those desires cause karma. Just for an example, we'll take a crude example of first. Let's say that someone sees a beautiful object in a store, and then when they see it, they're just overwhelmed with first the beauty of the object, but then the desires kick in, and the person feels like, oh, I want that object. Not only do I want that object, I have to have it. So then the person goes and steals it and then gets caught and goes to jail or whatever happens. But in any case, this is just a very crude example of how our senses lead to karmic actions. And those karmic actions are what cause our karma. On the other hand, we could take another kind of example. Let's say we saw a wounded animal on the street. And so at first, the basic indriya is just the perception, the visual perception of this picture. And then we have this reaction saying, oh my God, look at that poor suffering animal. And we pick up the animal and we take it to the vet, or we give it medicine or whatever. And that creates a kind of karma as well, a bond with the animal. And, you could say some good karma because the motivation, the desire there was to be helpful to another being. So this is what the moon is ruling over, is this constant constant barrage of sensory information that we're getting, and then what we do with that sensory information, the karmendriya, the actions that we take based on the sensory information that's coming in. Another name for the sun, the moon, besides Chandra, is Soma. And Soma relates to divine nectar or divine medicine. It's a very special, mystical kind of substance. And the moon is considered to have 16 digits when it is full. And every day the gods drink 1 digit of that nectar. And that's what causes the moon to wane. And then on a very special lunar day called Amavasya, the sun and the moon are together. This is during the new moon, when the moon is dark. The Amavasya, by the way, which is the day right before the new moon, it's the dark of the moon, is considered to be a very bad time to start anything. It's a very good time just to be quiet, kind of like being in a hibernation mode, because often any kind of actions that happen during that time can be a bit mindless because the moon doesn't have any rays at all at that time. So it's not a good time to try to do anything active out in the world. So this is, as I said, a very internal time, Amavasya. And then starting at the new moon, the Surya, the sun, starts to bestow these digits again, 1 digit a day, until the moon is full again. So this is an understanding, a kind of beautiful understanding from the Vedic tradition. And the mantra for Soma is Om Samaya Nama. Om Samaya Nama. And a quote from the Rig Veda is, "We have drunk Soma and become immortal. We have attained the light the gods discovered." So the understanding is that medicine and healing and nectar are qualities of the moon. Different phases of the moon relate to different Ayurvedic doshas. So the moon is both Kapha dosha, which is related more, of course, to the water and earth element, and also Vata dosha, which is related more to wind. So when the moon is full, it is much more, the more light that it has. So at the last quarter of going to full, and then from being full, the next quarter as it's waning. So the time when it has the most light, actually I'm pointing, it should be the time that when it has the most light, which is down here on the bottom, is when the moon is more kapha. So it has more of a kapha quality. So if you were born when the moon was full or within several days of being full, that would give you a more kapha constitution. There are other ways to judge Ayurvedic constitutions, but this is one big factor. On the other hand, looking at the top here, if you were born more toward the time of the new moon, within several days, either before or after the new moon, when the moon has less light, you would be more Vata. And the closer you are to the new moon in terms of when you were born, you would have a much more Vata constitution, especially with your mind. Vata constitution can lead to anxiety or sleeplessness, nervousness, etc. And if you were born, of course, as I said earlier, closer to the full moon here, you would be more kapha, which would lead to kind of more of a slowness, more of a placidity. People born with their moon, when they were born near a full moon, often have much more luminous kinds of personalities, a little bit more extroverted, a little bit more shiny, whereas people whose moons are more related to the new moon cycle tend to be more internal. Not that that is necessarily a bad thing. For example, I was born right here on the 13th day of the waning moon, and so very, very close to the new moon. So I tend to be more of an introvert, more internal. The moon represents feminine qualities, such as the mother. We can understand something about your mother or motherly figures in your life by looking at the moon, or queens. Of course, emotions, the qualities of nurturing. We can often see popularity by looking at the moon. People with the moon in the ascendant tend to be really friendly and be popular. Your childhood is seen from the moon, your family is seen from the moon, even the society and the group of people that you live in is seen from the moon. Home is another attribute of the moon. The moon is like a friend to all, like a mother who just gives love and nurturing to all around. Some vocations that are associated with the moon include healing and also singing. So singers and healers, and the quality of devotion, and even the quality of happiness. Just your basic kind of happiness is also associated with the moon. Here is a mantra associated with a deity that is very connected with the moon, who is Tara. And the mantra is Om Tara, Om Tare Tutare Ture Swaha. 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 So you can see the words down here, even if you can't see them up here. Om invokes auspiciousness, peace, and balance. Tare is the name of Tara. She's the swift, heroic liberator who liberates us from all of our fears, troubles, and even samsaric life itself. In many countries, if you're in trouble or having something that you really feel like you can't solve yourself and are feeling really scared and really in need of help, this is the time that we call on Mother Tara and recite this mantra. Very much in the Tibetan tradition, especially, Tara is called on during times of trouble and fright and bad things happening. So Om Tare Tutare, her powerful activity of fulfilling all wishes, bringing us to nirvana. So bringing us out of a suffering state into a state of peace. And this includes, very practical kinds of situations of sickness and loss and accidents. Anytime something bad happens is a great time to do the Tara mantra. Ture, we move beyond both samsara and nirvana to the non-dual state of the Dharmakaya. So with Ture, it's going more into a non-dual condition where we're not thinking about good or bad. And Soha establishes us in the state of complete enlightenment, firmly like a driven stake. So this mantra actually takes us all the way from our fears and our sufferings, which Tara addresses, into a non-dual state where we let go of all the suffering and finally into a state of enlightenment. So it's a very beautiful mantra, both from the point of view of helping us through our troubles and also showing us the light, Tara's light, to enlightenment. And this these quotes are from a very beautiful book called Tara's Enlightened Activity by the Kempo brothers. The moon represents compassion. Just as the sun is the source of light in our solar system, the moon is the reflected light, and that reflective quality represents consciousness, the mind. It also represents taking the very bright and overwhelming rays of the sun and offering them out as the milk of compassion, as nectar, as healing. Venus is also a planet associated with the water element, as the moon is, but Venus is more usually connected with desire and attachment, where the moon is love, is really love and all-encompassing compassion for all beings. When the moon is full of light, as I explained in the other slide, it tends to be more of a benefic influence. And when it becomes more dark, it becomes a mild, what we call a mild malefic. That's where the anxiety and the fear kind of creep in to things, and it can give some kind of more negative thoughts, and that which can bring in that malefic energy a little bit. The metal associated with the moon is silver, and the gem is pearl, and we'll be talking more about that later in this presentation. The fluids of the body are all connected with the moon, such as the blood and the lymph, also fertility. For people who are interested in fertility, the moon controls the cycles and is very connected with that, as is stomach, digestion, milk, and dairy. And we'll go a little bit more into this as well. The moon is the mother of the world. In the Agni Yoga teachings, the mother of the world is the matriarch and the initiator of the hierarchy of spiritual beings involved with this planet. You'll see this a lot on, if you ever look at Tarot, the card, the High Priestess, is related. This is actually a drawing by Nicholas Roerich, the theosophical artist. She's also the spiritual mother of all the Christed ones and Buddhas throughout history, according to the theosophical tradition, or the Agni Yoga tradition. In the Vedic tradition, the moon is associated with Aditi, who is the boundless, limitless, non-dual mother of the 12 Adityas, or the sun signs. So the moon gives birth to the sun signs, basically. And we will be talking about the lunar mansions in this presentation as well, where we will see that actually the lunar mansions are a more ancient form of astrology than the signs of the zodiac, which come from the sun. So there is really a strong relationship with the eternal ancient mother who gives birth to the sun. In the Buddhist tradition, Prajna Paramita is the mother of the Buddhas. She represents the ultimate nature of all phenomena, emptiness and suchness, free from the two veils, which are what keep us from seeing the ultimate truth. She is the pure essence of the sphere of emptiness, the insight of the non-self. She is the matrix that gives birth to the Buddhas of the three times. So you can see that there is strong correlation between these different traditions and the understanding of this eternal mother as represented by the moon. The deity Krishna is also associated with the moon, as I had mentioned earlier. The mantra Hare Krishna. Hare means he who removes illusion. And Hare also refers to Radha, who was Krishna's Shakti, Krishna's consort. So that it's very much connected with removal of delusion, of devotion, love and devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna is considered to be the avatar of Vishnu that has come for our time, which is why in the Hare Krishna movement, this mantra is considered to be so important. Cows and dairy are very much associated with the moon. This is a picture of the wish-fulfilling cow, Kamatenu, which means wish-fulfilling cow. So milk and all dairy products are considered to be associated with the moon. I have a friend who recently was talking about why is everybody going vegan these days, especially people who are involved in the Hare Krishna movement? Because we know that dairy products are considered to be very sublime, sacred food, and caring for cows is a wonderful thing to do, and it blesses the cows for when we eat their dairy products or we drink their milk, and then because that's really what they're here for. So it's a little bit of a different understanding than the current one. Of course, commercial dairy products are a very bad idea, both for the cows and the environment and for ourselves. However, if you are able to get milk from an animal that is eating real grass and is out in the sun and living a normal life, it might be a good food for you, especially if your ancestors ate that way. If you have Asian ancestry, East Asian ancestry, where you're not really set up to digest dairy products, this might not be a good idea for you. But other ancestries, if dairy products were in the normal diet, it might be something to consider. And even here, where I live up here in Mount Shasta, there is a local collective where you can go and help milk the cows, or you can just buy the milk, and it's beautiful raw milk from cows that are grazing on grass. So keeping that kind of food in your life, and especially ghee, which is like considered to be a very sacred food, used in butter lamps as a way of offering light, but also in Ayurveda, ghee is considered to be a carrier of the medicinal properties, and most herbs, you need to be adding some ghee in order to get the benefit. For example, turmeric. In order to make the golden milk or whatever. You need to either use ghee or you need to use full fat milk. These days, people are using vegan alternatives. Maybe they work fine, but traditionally, this dairy fat is what carries the medicinal qualities of the herb and makes them available in your tissues. There's a planet in everybody's chart, which is the planet that represents what your soul came here to learn, your soul's purpose. It's called your Atma Karaka. Atma means soul, Karaka means significator. If moon is your Atma Karaka, and by the way to determine this is something that a Vedic astrologer would need to do for you. It's not something you can look up. You have to have your birth chart made. So a person with moon as their soul significator should be very caring, compassionate, a natural mother, keeping the home in order, and using a lot of glass and crystal so that everything looks very shiny and beautiful. So anything that glitters and shines like the moon, reflecting the light of the sun, or a source of joy. Music is very important to people with a strong moon or moon as their soul significator, especially melodies and ballads and kind of heartfelt music when the lyrics are very beautiful. So singing is a wonderful expression for people who have moon as their soul significator, and this can help with depression and feeling low, etc. And some of the karma yogas, some of the things you can do if your moon is afflicted, include caring for mothers or caring for mother figures in your life, people who are like a mother to you. Even if the relationship is challenging, to offer service to older women who are mother-like figures is a way of doing a kind of what we call karma yoga, which is basically through our actions purifying our karma. Some of the questions that that moon people are looking at, internal questions, include: what is it that I nurture, and how do I handle boundaries? Do I know when to give and when to hold back? One thing that I've noticed with people with moon as their soul significator is sometimes they have a lack of boundaries, and they end up giving too much, both more than they can afford to give and more than the other really needs, and that can lead to burnout. So That's an important lesson for moon, is boundaries. They tend to not have a lot of boundaries. And the spiritual path that is most associated with the moon is bhakti, which is the path of devotion. Earlier I was talking about Krishna and Radha and her devotion for for Krishna, so that that heart of devotion and caring and compassion is associated with the moon. Interestingly, Saturn is the planet that is kind of got a lot of connections with the moon. Saturn is the planet of disease. The moon is the planet of healing. And the moon takes 28 days to go around the zodiac, and Saturn takes 28 years to go around the zodiac. So the number 28 is there. Both of them are exalted in signs of Venus. So the moon is exalted in Taurus, which is a sign of Venus, and Saturn is exalted in Libra, the other sign of Venus. And they're both debilitated in the signs of Mars. The moon is debilitated in Scorpio, which is the sign of disease, and it's the planet of healing and the sign of disease. And Saturn is debilitated in Aries, the other sign of Mars. And the moon is, when the moon is full, it's on the lunar day, which is ruled by Saturn. So there are just these interesting connections. I wrote a paper on the connections between moon and Saturn, the significators of healing and disease. And so when you start studying medical astrology, looking at the moon and looking at Saturn and how they relate becomes very important. Here is a mantra, another mantra that I associate with the moon because it is a mantra for developing compassion. And this is the 6-syllable mantra of the Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, Om Mani Padme Hum. And this mantra sends compassion to all the different realms, starting with Om, relates to the Deva or the God realm, of those beings in the God realm suffering from pride. And when that pride is released and transformed, it becomes the wisdom of equanimity. The syllable Ma is related with the Asura or the demigod realm. And the poison that the demigods suffer from is jealousy, fighting with each other, competing, trying to get up into the God realm, basically. And the wisdom that is associated with this realm, once that jealousy, if you're able to not grasp it and just see it as it is, it becomes all-accomplishing wisdom. The syllable Ni relates to the human realm, which the poison is passion, which is basically all our desires and all the ways that we chase after one thing after another. The syllable Pad or Pe is associated with the animal realm, and the poison of the animal realm is thought to be ignorance, and the wisdom that develops when ignorance is transformed is the Dharmadhatu wisdom, which is the wisdom of the way things really are, the wisdom of suchness, of the ultimate reality. And then the syllable May is associated with the hungry ghost realm, which the poison associated with that is greed, desire, wanting everything. And the wisdom, when that poison is released or transformed, is the wisdom of discernment. And finally, the lowest realm, the hell realm, is the poison associated with that is hatred. The beings in the hell realm suffering from hatred, and when that poison is transformed, it becomes mirror-like wisdom. So the understanding is that all of our afflictive emotions can actually be transformed into wisdom through the practice of meditation, through the practice of recognizing those emotions instead of getting embroiled in them. And all of that is encompassed in this mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, which is a mantra of compassion and a mantra of releasing, sending out love and compassion to all beings so that they are able to release those poisons and those poisons become wisdom. So the mantra, I'll sing it a few times. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. So that's a very, very beautiful mantra, the 6-syllable mantra that can help to develop those qualities of compassion and radiating love and compassion from one's heart. I was pronouncing it using the Tibetan pronunciation, which Padme is pronounced Peme, but you can do either one. So as I mentioned, this is the mantra of the Bodhisattva of Compassion, Chenrezig, known in Tibetan as Chenrezig, in Sanskrit as Avalokiteshvara. And not only are we sending out this love and compassion, which can purify all these 6 realms of beings, it is also purifying our own nadis and channels and winds in our bodies. So it's a mantra of purification as well as a mantra of compassion, as the 6 realms are actually the expression of our own minds and our channels and our chakras and our nadis. Kuan Yin is also associated with the moon. Kuan Yin is the Chinese version of Avalokiteshvara. One of my teachers likes to say when Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion, went to China, he had a sex change operation, became Kuan Yin, who's female. So this is a mantra that I learned in Indonesia when I lived there for 8 years. And this was my favorite mantra. I did it a lot. I had a Kuan Yin shrine with a Kuan Yin statue on it that I have to this day. This was back in the 70s. And I'm going to sing the mantra for you. It's very beautiful. I haven't found this mantra online, but I learned it in Indonesia back in the 70s. Namo Samanta Kuan Yin Tai Su Bodhisattva Mahasattva. Namo Samanta Samyak Sambodhi Gotinam Yetahu Yara Vajira Kundi Swaha. And on the subject of compassion, I would like to teach you a short practice which develops compassion. This comes out of the Buddhist tradition, and it's based on the breath. And so on the inhale, first let's start with, start again. Imagine in front of you the person who's the most dearest to your heart, or a person who is very dear to your heart, or it could be your pet, any living being that you love a lot. Imagine that being in front of you. Then imagine that that being is suffering and having some kind of suffering going on. So on the inhale, take the suffering into yourself. And then on the exhale, Offer that being whatever that being needs: love, compassion, healing, freedom from pain, freedom from fear. And then do that a few more times. And when that feels comfortable, this is kind of a progressive thing. When that feels comfortable, then take someone who you feel kind of neutral about, don't care that much about, but they're kind of okay to you. And you, on the in-breath, take in their suffering and let it out. Let out, when you let out your breath, you're offering them love and compassion. And then when you take on the in-breath, you take in all their suffering, and on the out-breath, you offer them compassion and healing and love and safety and comfort and whatever the good stuff is that they need. And then when that feels comfortable, you then take somebody that you have some difficulty with and that you might have some emotional charge around. Like you're angry at them and they did something bad to you, or they're an enemy, or however you want to put it. Take somebody like that, and on the inhale, do the same thing. Taking in all of their pain and suffering, and on the exhale, offering them all of the love, compassion, whatever it is they need. Taking in the suffering of that difficult being, offering love and compassion. Taking in the suffering and offering love, compassion, healing, and whatever that being needs. This is a way to develop a heart of compassion. Anybody who becomes a bodhisattva, who becomes someone who is a radiant Buddha-like being, is someone who is able to radiate love and compassion with all beings. And this is a way to get started. You can also, besides focusing on individuals, you can also just focus on receiving all of the pain of, let's say there was a group of people who have just gone through a horrible hurricane and storm somewhere, and they're suffering. You can take in all the suffering of all those beings, and then you can offer them on the exhale comfort, dry place to stay, whatever they need. So whenever you can just have this as a habit. Whenever you can imagine taking on beings suffering and offering them whatever they need. This is called sending and receiving. And what we're sending is all of our wishes and all of our best healing energies to others, and what we're receiving is all of their pain. This is the path of the Bodhisattva. The sign that is ruled by the moon is Cancer. Of course, it's represented by a crab, and the part of the body that it rules is the chest. Cancer is a Rajasic movable sign, and it's also, of course, a watery sign. The residences of Cancer are forests, watery places, and it's very similar to what we've talked about with the moon: emotions, mother, nurturing, the home, intuition, family, children, imaginative, and kind of a fluctuation, fickleness, receptivity. Generally, people that have prominent planets, especially moon in Cancer, tend to like security. And it's related to the priestly caste. And the mantra for the sign of Cancer is Om Karkaya Nama. Om Karkaya Nama. Karka means Cancer. And some of the associations here with the sign of Cancer, This is a medical astrologer who made this beautiful picture here, which shows the sign of Cancer, as you can kind of see it in the rib cage, how you can see how the rib cage looks a bit like a crab, and the breasts also can look like the sign of Cancer as well. And the stomach, you can also see it kind of has the shape of a moon here. So the moon is in charge of sustenance. Sustenance is our first sustenance in life is the milk of our mothers. So milk and mothers are associated with Cancer. The heart is pumping, so which keeps the fluids moving in the body. So those fluids in the body are associated with Cancer. If water stagnates, it can cause chronic disease, and this is where the moon is debilitated, is in the sign of Cancer. And it's exalted in the sign of Taurus, the sign of the bull, which of course, when we can think about the cow and milk also. So the moon likes to be over here with the bull and being involved with milk and sustenance. But when we get down to Scorpio, the stagnating water, and the sign of Scorpio represents the rectum. So, when stuff is coming out, and if we're not really able to eliminate well, that can lead to chronic disease. Every day at sunrise, a tiny drop of nectar is dropped from the base of the tongue into the throat, which is in the sign of Taurus, and this is the nectar that keeps us alive for one day. And so the sign of Taurus is very important in terms of our daily drop of nectar. The calmness of the mind will determine how much nectar is generated. If we're agitated, less nectar is generated and the hormones go out of balance. So this is why meditation and keeping the mind calm can be very, very helpful for health and for having that nectar of vitality that is said to drop into the back of the throat. The Bij mantra Jum causes increase of nectar in the throat. It's good to wake before sunrise, cleanse the mouth, and drink water. So the mantra is Jum, 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 Jum. You can almost feel it making you salivate when you repeat that mantra. Jum, 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 Jum. So the sign where the moon is exalted creates the nectar, and the sign where the moon is debilitated, down here in Scorpio, is the place of disease. I mentioned earlier that pearls are the stone associated with the moon, and there are different qualities of pearls. As I mentioned in the presentation on the sun, getting a Vedic quality gemstone can be important if you want to use a gemstone as an upaya, as a remedial measure. So if you get a cultured pearl, most of it is actually bone, or something that they put inside. And then the oyster just creates this thin coating of nacre around this. Whatever's inside might just be a piece of bone, or I'm not sure what they put in. But if you have a natural pearl, all of this is nacre. So you can imagine how much more substance, pearl substance, is in a real pearl than is in a cultured pearl. You can get tissue nucleated pearls, which are a kind of cultured pearl, but they are cultured with just a little tiny thing inside so that it's almost all nacre here. And that is a good remedial kind of pearl if you're trying to strengthen your moon. And there's a website you can go to, astrologicalgem.com. This is a very good, authentic Vedic jeweler, and he will actually send you a selection of whatever gems that you're interested in. You just put them as a hold on your credit card, and then you send back whatever it is you don't want. So he lets you actually experience the gems, which is a nice way if you actually feel the gem yourself and get a feeling as to whether it's something that you want. Pearls are not as expensive as some of the other gems. They're fairly reasonably priced comparatively. Just as we all know our sun sign, it's very good to know our moon sign. You're not able to figure out the moon sign the same easy way because the sun takes a month to go through a sign. So we can say, okay, if you were born, from January 14th through February 13th, we know, what your sun sign is. But the moon is changing signs much more quickly than that every few days. So you do need an astrologer to cast your chart, a Vedic astrologer, to tell you what your moon sign is. But your moon sign is even more important than your sun sign in Vedic astrology because it shows the predominant nature of your mind and your aspirations. And we also look at the planet that rules the sign that the moon is in. If it's strong, then your mind will be strong and noble. But if it's weak, you may have some issues with your mind, and it will let us know the kind of mental blocks we need to break through. For example, if the Lord of the Moon sign, the planet that rules the sign the moon is in the sixth house, then work or serving others might take over your life. And in addition to that, there's another kind of moon sign. There's a whole other zodiac, so to speak, that is based on the moon. Just as there are the 12 signs of the moon, there are the 27 mansions of the moon. And they are called in Sanskrit nakshatras. And the nakshatra, or the lunar mansion of the moon, gives the strength of the life force. So this tells us a lot about your health. The deity associated with the moon's lunar mansion is very crucial for health. And if you have health problems, you might want to be chanting the lunar mansion, the mantra of the lunar mansion that your moon is in. Then there's also divided again into four. Those lunar mansions are divided into 4 sections each, which helps us understand the direction our life goes. And we go into more of this in the vitalism teachings as to the different directions of life. Dharma, which is associated with justice and righteousness and action. Artha, which is associated with accumulating wealth. Kama, which is associated with desires and following our desires. And moksha, which is associated with seeking spiritual liberation. So knowing both the moon sign in terms of the sign of the zodiac that your moon is in, as well as the lunar mansion that your moon is in. So here's a little bit more about the lunar mansions, and you can see on the inside here we have the 12 signs of the zodiac. Here's Aries up here, and then the lunar mansions are constellations as well, but there are 27 or 28 of them. There's a 28th lunar mansion that isn't counted in this count, but there are 27 that we work with on a practical level. And each of these lunar mansions has a deity associated with it. It also has a Shakti, or a divine feminine power, as well as a basis and a desire. There's a lot of information there. And of course, this is the yin, or the female side of the understanding. Everything else that you've done before in astrology is all very yang. It's all related to the signs of the zodiac, which are defined by the sun, as we talked about in the first presentation. But now we're talking about the mansions of the moon, which are much more ancient system. It's a much more intuitive, deep system, and it has this association with different deities. Now, I don't have time in this presentation to go over all 27, but I am going to go over the first one and the last one, just to give you a little taste. And this is something that we study in detail in the Vitalism program. And this is also something, if you do a reading, a Vedic astrology reading, that we would go into the lunar mansions that all of your planets are in. So the lunar mansion of the moon is the most important, just as the sun sign of the sun is the most important. But we also look at the lunar mansions for all your other planets, and it's very, very revealing. So the first lunar mansion is called Ashwini. The Ashwins are a pair of horse-headed physicians who ride through the zodiac and administer medicine to the gods. So Ashwini means owning horses. And so it is the Shakti, or the divine feminine power associated with it, is the power to quickly heal and reach what they desire. It's a nakshatra of initiation, revitalization, and transformational healing. So you'll often see that healers and people with a lot of abilities in medicine and healing have prominent planets in Ashwini. The temperament is a godly or deva temperament, and their primary motivation is dharma, or righteousness. The planet that rules this lunar mansion is the south node of the moon, which gives a mystical and mysterious bent to their life journey. And Ashwini is formed by the 3 stars in the head of the constellation of the Ram. So it's near the constellation of Aries. So healing, guardian animals, the need to help, heal, and serve others. So it's a wonderful, very dynamic and healing lunar mansion. And the mantra is Om Ashwini Kumarabhyam Namah. And as I said, I can't do all 27 in this presentation, but that's the first one, and here's the last one. Revati. Revati is another very beautiful lunar mansion. Revati means the wealthy. The symbol for Revati is a drum, which is a marker of time and reflects the final lunar mansion. And what this lunar mansion is associated with is the deity Pushan, who we actually talked about as one of the Adityas as well. He is the nurturer and the protector of travelers and animals. He finds lost things and lost animals and is the god of safe travel. This can be worldly travels, but also the travel of consciousness after death. So I see this lunar mansion a lot in the charts of people who either work in hospice or are drawn toward hospice, or who have a real love of animals and like to save animals and care for animals and nurture animals. It's ruled by the planet Mercury. The animal symbol is a female elephant, and the Shakti is the power of nourishment symbolized by milk. So this nurturing, nourishing quality of helping a being go from one pasture to another, whether it is a shepherd with his sheep, or whether it is a person, going through the transition of death. Nutrition can be important, as is being in a rhythm of work, lifestyle, or music. It's one of the most benefic nakshatras for spiritual growth and development of psychic abilities. It is formed by 32 faint stars at the tail of the fish. So it's near the sign of Pisces, because it's in the sign of Pisces. So the Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, which is really expresses the energy of this, of just being that nurturer and that shepherd who takes us through the valley of death and onto the other side. And the mantra is Om Pushane Namah. Om Pushane Namah. So you can see the connection also between the nakshatras and the adityas, which we talked about in the first session, because the deity is the same deity, Pushan. And several of the adityas are also nakshatra deities. These are some of the spagyric alchemical preparations that I have made that are associated with the moon and were made in harmony with the energies of the moon. You can also make your own tinctures, or you can go to our Etsy shop if you want to try the actual spagyric properties. Etsy shop is called Shakti Herbal Alchemy. So sacred lotus. This was made from lotus petals and is very purifying to the chakras. And the roots of the lotus are in the mud. The stem grows up through the water, and the heavily scented flower lies above the water, basking in the sunlight. And this represents the spiritual path of coming out of a sense of materialism through the waters of experience and into the sunshine of enlightenment. So it's only the lotus that regularly rises 8 to 12 inches above the surface of the water. So that's its signature for really rising above the mud, and why all of the deities are always sitting on lotuses. It offers this spagyric preparation and lotus petals as a medicine, offers the energy of serenity and purity, clears and quiets the mind like a calm, peaceful lake. It's interesting, the sign of Cancer is related to lakes. The sign of Pisces, another water sign, is associated with the ocean, but Cancer is a lake, like that kind of still peacefulness. And it's very interesting. One time I was in a health food store showing people some of these spagyrics, and a lady walked in who everybody knew was kind of crazy and kind of agitated, and she was going around acting a little crazy and a little strange and weird. And I had her come over and gave her a drop of lotus elixir, lotus spagyric. And immediately she just calmed down. And the people in the health food store who knew her well and had given her all kinds of things to try before had never seen anything work that way. So this has a really beautiful energy of giving a very calm and peaceful mind. Very good to take right before meditation. The lotus elixir was made in tune with the energy of the moon, who peacefully offers the healing nectar of her rays to all creatures as a mother nourishes her children. Another more unusual herb made with the energies of the moon is the snow lotus, which is a high altitude plant with brilliant white flowers. It's a really delicious and interesting herb. I also have made tea out of it. It's very hard to get. I found a source for it on eBay and had it sent directly from China. And they're very beautiful when they're dry. They're these really huge flowers, about that big, and you can still see what a beautiful flower it is even after it has been dried. It's used as a tonic for weakness, menstrual disorders, arthritis, and this again was made in harmony with the energies of the moon, and it gives the mantra that I used with this is the Tara mantra. So I encourage people, if they want to do the Tara mantra, you might want to take the snow lotus. It's got a little more of a dynamic energy to it than the regular lotus. This is dream herb, which helps with dreams. And when you take it before bed, it can enhance your dream life and help you to remember your dream. It's a traditional herb used by the Chontal Indians in Mexico. There are a few other plants that are also helpful for dreams, but this is a wonderful one. And finally, Salvia divinorum, a very interesting herb, which is used in religious and healing ceremonies by the Mazatec Indians. And salvia, of course, means wise or sage, and divinorum means divinatory. So it's divinatory sage. It can be helpful for doing astrology or tarot readings, or any time when you're trying to do a divination. That's really what it was used for. So in the book Pharmaco, Dale Pendell assigned Salvia divinorum to a unique pharmacological class, which he calls extentia. This term alludes to the philosophical illumination of salvia, seems to shine on the nature of existence itself. So it is a kind of a little bit of a psychedelic plant. It's illegal in some states, not in California, but some states it's not legal. But our spagyric preparation of it, of course, is working. You don't take a large pharmacological amount of it, but you can feel this kind of ability to go more deeply into whatever it is that you want to carry your consciousness into. So the plant was mostly used when shamans felt they needed to discover the cause of a patient's illness in the supernatural world. The shaman entered in a visionary trance that allowed him to see what steps have to be taken to cure the patient. So shamanism, prediction, meditation, searches for the divine, or tuning into the qualities of the green world, trying to discern what for yourself, what the different qualities of plants are. So it's a really, really beautiful plant. You have to use it very carefully and very wisely, of course. So I do readings for people if you're interested in finding out more about the significator of your soul, or your moon sign, or the lunar mansion that your moon is in, and just get a better understanding of your life. A Vedic astrology reading can be really helpful for that. And online, I do those readings using Zoom, and you can learn more about it on my website, astrohealing.us. I also do readings at the Chai Shop in Mount Shasta as well, if you ever come up there. The next seminar will be on Jupiter, and at the Chai Shop, I'll be doing that on August 31st, but I'll also be posting it online. And if you would like to learn Vedic astrology for yourself, as well as plant alchemy and spiritual practices, you can take a look at the website www.vitalism.us and watch the introductory presentation there. We're starting a new cohort of apprentices, and you can learn more about it and think about whether you'd like to join us for that. Thank you for joining us.